Uh, Thank you, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. Karen and I had a good weekend, as you might guess, but out of respect for those who might have been cheering for another team, I chose not to wear a uniform at all. I didn't want to put it out there at all. So I thought I would just wear a regular shirt and not even bring it up today. So anyway, I hope you had a good weekend. We obviously did. We enjoyed the weekend a lot. So, and nice weather today, still cold, but nice weather. In our series on Gideon, I'm amazed at a couple things. One, um, my series that I do always end up longer than I intended. This one was going to be 5 sessions long. We're on number 4, and we haven't gotten out of the first set of verses. The reason for that is, and this is one of the things that I hope that you take on for yourself. I know the story of Gideon. I've known the story of Gideon for a long time. I heard the story of Gideon when I was a child in in Sunday school, and I heard it preached in messages, and I read about it myself and went to Bible college and heard about Gideon. Um, Kind of in some ways one of the great men of the Old Testament. So it's easy when you come to Scripture, especially if you're familiar with Scripture, to just read it and hear the same things you've always heard in a passage. But for the last bunch of years, I've really tried to practice slowing down. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. Slow down, read it again. I can't tell you how many times I've already read Judges chapter 6 as I prepare for these, as well as 7 and 8, because that's the whole story of Gideon. Um, and I always try and ask the Lord to let me see it from fresh eyes so that I'm not just seeing the same old lessons. So while Gideon is one of the great leaders of Israel, we're going to find out that he has his own issues that he struggles with. It's not necessarily going to end as well as it began. But today, what I want us to see is Gideon was a man with really strong, shaky faith. Now, it sounds funny to say it that way, doesn't it? To have really strong, shaky faith. But one of the things that we sometimes do with our biblical characters is we put them way up here on a pedestal and we kind of make heroes out of them. And everybody needs heroes. That's fine. But in making them a hero, whoever it is, whether it's Mary that we looked at over Christmas time, or whether it's Gideon now, or whoever it is, except for Jesus, of course, the heroes of our faith are actually quite human beings, and they struggle like we struggle. So we sometimes make faith seem like something that, like, we think Mother Teresa never had her doubts at all. Like every day was just a strong day of faith for her, and it wasn't. If you read her life story, you'll see there were days of darkness and days of struggle in there. Um, George Mueller, a great example from the past about having faith. And if you've been a Christian for a long time, you probably have heard his name, including stories like sitting down to the dinner table. They had absolutely no food. They had no food to eat. He prays and he gives thanks, and there's a knock on the door and somebody's delivering a meal to him. Wow, that's faith. And we think that's what faith is like all the time. I'll make you a bet. If I looked deeply into George Mueller's life, we would see there are times when his faith was challenged. This is the way of being human. So, Gideon, I'm saying, has a really strong, shaky faith. It's really strong in some areas, and it's a little bit shaky in other areas. If you've been with me in the podcast for a long time, I meant to look this up. I don't have it handy, but I put that triangle thing together for you, talking about the 3 legs of faith. And it had to do with belief in who God is, trusting our lives based on that belief, and then acting upon it. Gideon is going to be a good example of one of the struggles that grows out of that. The one at the top, he had a strong, good faith in who God is, But whenever it came time for him to act, his his ability to trust the Lord suddenly became shaky. That's why I say he has a strong, shaky faith. I don't think his commitment to believing in the God who is loving, the God who's powerful, the God who's able to do anything, all those things, the God who's able to save, I don't think that that got shaken very often. Where it started to get challenging for him was in his personal life. And we're going to see that today. One of the patterns that we see in Gideon's life is whenever the Lord asks him to do something, he, rather than just go out and trust the Lord and do it, he has to ask for a sign. So let's get into this. We're already over halfway through our time together, and let's see this um, story. So just to recap, an angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, and the Lord turned to him and said, now you're going to see in this passage, I have it in green, angel of the Lord and the Lord over and over and over again in the passage. We're going to make a comment about that at the end. Go in strength, you have the go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? And down here in 16, I will be with you. You will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. So he had a big job to do. He believes in God, but look at his response. Gideon replied, if now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it's really you talking to me. Okay? It now had to become personal. The faith that he had to become personal, and now suddenly it's challenging for him. I want you to take heart in that because your faith and my faith are not perfect. It wavers at times. Sometimes it's hard. The lesson to come out of this is not we should constantly ask God for signs. God was very patient with Gideon, and every time he asked for a sign, God gave him a sign. But that's not to say that's how we're supposed to generally operate. Please give me a sign that it's really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring you an offering, set it before you. And the Lord said, I will wait till you return. So Gideon leaves, he goes and he gets a young goat and some flour, and he makes bread and yeast and cooks the meat, puts it all in a basket, even makes a broth in the pot. He's got a meal ready to go. And the angel said to him, take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on the rock, and pour out the broth. And Gideon did so. And then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. And watch what happens. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and bread, and it was gone that quick. Poof! The meat and bread are gone. The angel of the Lord disappeared. And when Gideon realized it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face. But the Lord said to him, peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die. And this is what Gideon was struggling with inside. God asked a big ask of him, and we're going to be taking a look at that in the coming days. But it unsettled him, and he had no peace. And all of this that the Lord worked with Gideon was to produce peace in his heart so he was prepared to face the challenges that he had. This is the same challenge you and I have. Peace in our hearts in order to face the challenges that God has put before us. So God grants his request for a sign, burns up the food completely, says the angel of the Lord left. Now, who is this angel of the Lord business? We keep hearing the angel of the Lord, the Lord, the angel of the Lord, the Lord, the angel of the Lord, the Lord. This is not any old angel. In fact, it's probably not an angel at all. It's just the way the Old Testament describes it. This is what I firmly believe. It could have been an angel of the Lord's, like one of God's main angels coming. But I don't get the sense that that's what's going on here. Because the language chain goes back and forth interchangeably between the Lord and the angel of the Lord, I believe that Jesus is the angel of the Lord in this case, and he appeared to Gideon. You see, Jesus didn't suddenly become active at Christmas and suddenly started, well, I guess it's time for me to get busy now. Now I'm a human being. It's time for, no, Jesus has always been busy. He's the creator God. He made everything. I always chuckle. I've told you this before. Whenever A native person says to me, I don't believe in Jesus, I believe in the Creator, I laugh inside because they don't even realize they're saying the same thing. Jesus has always been active, and Jesus was active in the Old Testament. It just doesn't use Jesus's name. It's an appearance by God to man. Likely it's Jesus that appeared to Gideon to settle the unsettled part of his faith down. And just like the promise that Jesus makes in the New Testament, my peace I leave with you, it's not like the world's peace. It's an unshakable peace. He's making the same promise to Gideon in the Old Testament to prepare him for the task that is at hand. And so Gideon, one of the heroes of our faith, was a man of very strong faith and a man of shaky faith all at the same time, just like you and I. We're going to see this pattern over and over again where he keeps asking for signs, keeps asking for signs, keeps asking for signs. But it's okay. The Lord was patient with him. He'll be patient with you. He'll be patient with me. He wants to produce peace in our lives so that we can go out and face the challenges that he has put in our path. It's my word for today. Hope that encourages your heart. And Lord willing, I look forward to seeing you all again on Wednesday.